We've got a bit of a timeline here because Sabrina is going to come back. That was effective, wasn't it? So we're reaching the final stages of the day. There's quite a lot of you, and what we will do is I can see a lot of people have made a lot of notes. So we will collect these up and gather them up, pull them into a single place, send them out to you. You can feed back if we've misrepresented some of the points, let us know. So we will promise to do that. But in the meantime, just a really quick run round each of the tables. I've asked you for one killer point and everybody's looked at me with horror. So you've obviously had really rich conversations. Then I'll do a sum up and then we're going to have Sabrina. So would anybody like to volunteer the 1 point? And speak into the microphone, so yeah.
So our killer point is around manifestos, which we talked about. Oh, sorry, we're the governance and strategy group. And our killer point is around manifestos that we talked a bit about. And it's about having a holistic approach, stating your policy, not being afraid to state your policy and have values around sustainability.
Great, that's fantastic. That really was 1 point. Would anybody else like to volunteer? Shall I just volunteer you? Table number 1? Two?
Okay, well, we talked about... This one. Right, this one. So we started by where leadership comes from, and we said that in this space it can come from pretty much anywhere in the organisation, and actually that's the kind of main thing that, work with the willing, harness that energy, and then gather the kind of evidence to persuade other decision makers within the organisation, and also critically and crucially involve the staff in the changes that you're planning, so they own that change themselves.
Great.
We were talking about public external engagement, and our killer point, I think, was around if you ask good questions about what people want from the future, you can trust in the wisdom of your community and your audience that you will get good responses back, and that their engagement will be positive. I think we can be too scared to ask questions and think we'll get a lot of polarised negative things back, but actually if we trust our audiences, our communities, they have some fantastic ideas.
Great, thank you.
Hello. So our group was talking about collections and exhibitions, and I think I'm going to go with our killer point being around communication and confidence about what you know, what you don't know, what questions you want to ask of other people, honesty about what you can and can't do, finding out what's available out there, looking at your policies, whether it's about dynamic collecting, looking at the evidence of temperature and humidity data, whether you're talking to lenders, etc., etc. I think I'll leave it at that.
Great, thank you.
Well, we're clearly Billy No Mates on our table, but we haven't let it upset us. Our point would be that smaller organisations can make a really big impact through working in partnership.
Great, thank you.
We took a bit of a contrariist approach, rather
did.
than kind of say it was all sweetness and light between wellbeing and sustainability. And we talked about recognising tensions and the cognitive dissonance in some of our work. For example, the exhibition an exhibition about the acidification of oceans will take place in a museum that will be selling bottles of water encased in plastic. So making sure that for all our opportunities to talk about how wonderful museums are and how they how they can promote well-being and get us to think about our environment more, but also to acknowledge that there are tensions in our work, and there's often much dissonance.
Great, thank you, Tony.
So the main point that we spoke about was sort of barriers to buying from perhaps 100% renewable electricity supplier. One of those can be that sort of museums sort of skate the line generally between being sort of council funded or privately funded or a charity, and often those are grouped into procurement baskets, and have done for many years. So we just encourage you to just ask the questions to see if you can be removed from those baskets where possible. And yeah, that's all about it really. Just because something's been that way for a really long time doesn't mean that you couldn't break away from those.
Fantastic. Well done that you all got 1 point. So I'm just summing up while we go and find the poet. It's been a great day for that, hasn't it? And I just thought there were some fantastic sort of things that were said today, and I thought I'd just reflect back on them because it's been such a rich conversation. So much has come up. Starting with Honna's amazing presentation, what is it to know? The idea of experience as a different type of very vital knowledge, and bringing that very much into how we are approaching our work in this field. Then Kevin's wonderful idea of stewardship of collections as actually looking at how woodland management is how woodlands are managed, and thinking about collections in the context of that very natural way of approaching the world. There is so much that we can learn about ourselves if we focus on nature and natural systems. And then there's Tony. It's very great. He had great quotes. Stop the HLF. Stop heritage lottery funding. Give us a chance to catch a breath or two, which I thought was a great idea, and help sort out the collections mess. It was a great quote. I haven't tweeted it. Also, museums are never impartial. I think this came up a few times throughout the day, and actually, of course, that table just reminded us museums are not impartial. They are complicit in private theft, and it's important that we tell these stories. Really interesting stuff that I think we all struggle with. Henry had some really important things to say about the role of emotions and how didactic knowledge and didactic learning just isn't enough. And also, why aren't we talking about the Sustainable Development Goals? And I think this is something that many of us in this field wonder quite a lot, is where is that conversation disappearing? Which rabbit hole is it going down? How can we retrieve it and start to make it much more felt? And also the idea of reflecting society, again, to Henry, the idea that museums reflect society, he said, they just don't. And I thought that was a really interesting point. Phil spoke about making it all really relevant in the context of a local and local to here space. Then Kevin spoke a lot about the many different things that can be done, particularly in the context of a parkland. Anna had this wonderful thing about being the founders of climate change, and how Ironbridge would like to become the founders of a new green revolution, which is a wonderful idea of ambition. Laura spoke about the huge challenges that we all face and how to understand what our real agency actually is, and then how do we exercise it, specifically through the focus of funding and divestment, but of course they're really embodying it. It's as a critical part of our understanding of capacity and urgency for change. And so out of that, I think I've pulled 3 really major themes, none of which are, and do tell me if that you feel that there are other things that we've covered today. One is what we do with stuff. It's not just the buildings, it's the stuff, and it's how we are saving and conserving all this stuff, what the stuff represents of our past and of our present, and how actually it is inherently unsustainable. The second is about communications, how we travel this very complex and very freighted landscape of language and engagement, and what that means for us as institutions, but also in a much wider frame. And finally, a really, really important question about purpose. What is the purpose of our curation of our buildings, of ourselves as a sector, what kind of a vital role do we have to play in society? And one takeaway that for me personally, that I found really interesting, and I hadn't really thought about it before, and that's because I haven't really thought about it before. But just, there was a point made about theatre. The theatres are not going to like me for this, but there was a point made about theatre early on, about the way that actually everybody comes into museums. They might be dragged in, kicking and screaming as small people, but they do go in a way that actually many of other art forms don't have that kind of purchase. And that was, for me, very significant, that we really do need to think about purpose and responsibility in that context, because it's pretty, I think you made it, Sabrina. Yeah, but it was a really interesting point, and for me that was quite revelatory. So this is a very, very important grouping. And I'm sure I've missed other things that will come out from the table, but thank you very much. And the last word definitely goes to our poet, who has been found. Yeah, that was pretty impressive.
Is this the only one that's working? That one working? Yeah, use that one. Okay. So I've written this based on. Sorry, I just got a big cough a minute ago, so it looks like I was crying. I mean, it was a good day, but it wasn't that emotional, so I'm not actually crying, but it might seem like that at some point. So I've done this based on partly things that I heard, just general comments that have then just inspired. Thank you, Jordan. Inspired various tangents, and then also, obviously, the reasons why we're here today. How did we get here? A quick Google suggests God, the Big Bang, or hang on, are we talking about Catalonia or the housing crisis or financial collapse or irreversible environmental ruin or Trump or Putin or just the basic beginning of beginnings? Whichever one, there'll be a museum or gallery near you offering insight, if not answers, and this alone makes it a pure joy to be here today. And by here, I mean this room in Emshed where you can peek a Ferris wheel and freezing river from giant windows, as those bothered about the future versions of us gathered to discuss sustainability and heritage, by which I don't mean the type of tomatoes you get on gourmet bruschetta, although shout out to the caterers, though you were amazing. I mean more like those looking after our cultural, natural, beautiful, sometimes shameful heritage in museums, doing the most amazing things to help us make some kind of sense out of this messy, tangled, complicated world which we inhabit as guests. Yes, we do not own it. We can't really control it as much as we may try to do both. So how can this growing and glorious sector help us here to be better guests, to be a galvanising positive force in the process of inspiring action on climate change? I mean, you wouldn't necessarily want to describe yourself as that kind of guest on Airbnb, but I think nature is a bit beyond profiling by now, so we'll stick with the analogy. How? Well, maybe by framing the changes that need to be made as gains rather than loss, not falling into lamentations of what has been, but celebrations of what could be. Maybe by becoming a lumberjack. I think I've got that one wrong. It was definitely something about wood cutting. But perhaps I should stick to the 3 words I've heard more today than I ever have. 3 words which struck me with mostly dread until I heard them said by all of you. Action, impact, engagement. Action just makes me think of not being able to watch Netflix for 4 hours a night, and who wants that kind of life? Impact sounds like a giant meteorite subjective wiping us right out. And engagement, well, if I start listing all the things that make me feel anxious, angry, disturbed and palm sweaty about marriage, we'd be here till spring. Which brings me to feelings. Feelings for ourselves, for others. Because we are not economists. We do believe that people are fundamentally good, that the actions they take will in some way have more than themselves in mind, that the impact of our feelings will mean leaving behind at least something to be proud of, something that marks an understanding of our bodies being part of nature and all of what that means. We must be kind to the sky that keeps our skin and the soil that beats our heart, and believe that our engagement will not end in matrimony. We will keep our own names whilst keeping doors open to improve ventilation, saving heating resources, use recycled paint and brew kombucha whilst decolonising our minds. And finally, we will do more than listen to the change. We will make it the melody of our everyday, and we will play it to everyone in our own ways. Thank you.
It's time for a drink, and they're all outside already, so see you out there.